Hello, everybody. You have tuned in to the Indiana State Police Roadshow, brought to you by the Indiana State Police Alliance, Cops for Kids. I'm your host, First Sergeant Rich Myers with the Indiana State Police Public Information Office. With my guest today, and we were just talking before we've been on air, I've got Cindy Booth from CASA. And Cindy, it's been a little while since you've been here.
A couple of years, it sounds like.
Yeah. We were talking about that before going on air, and unfortunately, it's been that long. I'm sorry to have that time go through us, but we appreciate you being here today.
Well, I appreciate you contacting me because we have a big need for volunteers, and if you can help us get some volunteers for kids in Indiana, we'd appreciate it.
Well, that's what we're going to try and do, and we are brought to you by Tom Trial. He's putting us on YouTube, so we'll be able to watch it on there also. And again, we thank the State Police Alliance and the Cops for Kids for putting us on each and every week. But let's get right into this and talk about your need for volunteers for CASA.
Well, children who are abused and neglected and removed from their homes by the Department of Child Services in Indiana all have a person called a CASA, a court-appointed special advocate, a volunteer appointed for their best interests. Mm-hmm. And so as the parents are becoming, we hope, safe and appropriate again to parent their children, and as the children receive services, we are appointed to represent the children's best interests. So we're the only ones who look out for the children as they're going through what's called a CHINS, a Child in Need of Services case. And recently in Indiana, probably as no surprise to many of your listeners and viewers, is we have had a substantial increase in the need for volunteers because of substance abuse, particularly heroin. And so we really need volunteer advocates to help us go out and visit the children and see how they're doing and help report that back to the juvenile court judge.
Now, you say this is for children. What age are you talking about?
We have children who come into the child welfare system from 0 minutes after birth to, in their early 20s. Okay. So all the way through as children age, children are brought into the system for various reasons of abuse and neglect. So many ages.
And this child advocate, do they actually take the child, or do they work with them, or how does that work out?
That's a good question. A lot of people are a little confused about that. A child advocate, or a CASA, court-appointed special advocate, is appointed by the judge to go visit the child, and one of our statutory duties is to monitor what Department of Child Services is providing for the family, but also to gather information, particularly about the child. So we don't bring them home. We don't have them in our homes. We don't take them out for ice cream. We are their advocate while their family is going through the court proceeding, while their parents, we hope, are becoming safe and appropriate parents.
Are the child still with the parents, or do you ever work with a child being placed somewhere else?
Yes. The answer is yes to that question, both. Sometimes parents have committed neglect or has done something that's not quite as serious, and we'll have what we call an in-home CHINS, a Child in Need of Services action, where there's monitoring going on by the Department of Child Services, and so we might visit the children in the parent's home. Most of the time, the cases are serious enough that the children have been removed because of physical, sexual, mental abuse or neglect, and so they're with probably a relative, a foster parent. They might be in a hospital. They might be in a group home, in other settings away from the parents. So both. Our volunteers would be doing either one of those things.
Okay. So if somebody's listening to the program here and they said, that sounds kind of interesting to me, I want to be involved with that, how do they get started on this program? We
have a fantastic network in the state of Indiana. In fact, I'm proud to say we have one of the best CASA networks in the country, second to Texas. I think it's 78 counties are covered by CASA programs, and so they can call the 1-800 number, which is 1-800-542-0813. That's 1-800-542-0813. They can, to learn about CASA, generally speaking, they can come to our website, which is easy to remember, childadvocates.net. Think of the net under a child. Okay. And we can, if they're from a county far away from Marion County, we can get them to the right CASA program because we are all in need of volunteers.
Is there a training program, or how do they learn what they're doing?
We are part of the Supreme Court. Our state office is part of the Supreme Court, and that state office certifies us, so we must provide 30 hours of training. So each county does that a little differently. Here in Marion County at Child Advocates, we offer 30 hours of training, and only about 23 are in-class trainings. We do some online things and observation and mentoring because we think it's really important to give people the tools they need to go out and visit children in a relative care home or a foster home, something like that. The topics are about child abuse dynamics, the child welfare system, the legal system, how to write a court report, how to interview a child. We want our volunteers to be able to work with children pretty quickly because we need that information for their cases.
Now, what kind of workload would a child advocate be expected to carry?
We get that question a lot. So if they can get past the training, which I promise you goes very quickly and is really interesting, then we ask at Child Advocates on graduation night, we give people their first case because we want them to know right away, is this the volunteer opportunity that matches what you think it did? And we pair them with a volunteer supervisor or a staff person to work with them. And that ends up being, once they get that case, we ask them to commit to the child for a year. And sometimes that means the child and their siblings. So it ends up being maybe 5 to 8 hours a month.
Okay.
Once you do that initial, here's the first questions that you'll ask the child. We give them a roadmap of like a case assignment of all the questions. You may sit there outside the home and think, I have butterflies in my stomach. What were those questions I was supposed to ask?
Yeah.
So we give everybody sort of a roadmap of the things that they're supposed to ask. And after that, our hearings our visits are really tied to the hearings, and we visit the children before the hearings.
So are they going to be expected to testify in court then?
Very rarely do volunteers testify in court. In most of the juvenile court proceedings, during the first phase, that is the phase where the parents are trying to become safe and appropriate, it is in a more informal setting that when you think of in a courtroom setting.
Right.
So most volunteers work, so if volunteers can make it to the court session, the court hearing, we really appreciate that. We are also able to submit their reports if they can't make it to court.
Okay.
The only time that volunteers have to testify is if we are to the point where the parents haven't done anything, any of the services that taxpayers have paid for them to do, and then we move to what's called a termination of the parent-child relationship, and that's a trial, and then the volunteers have to testify at that point.
Well, again, you've tuned into the Indiana State Police Roadshow. I'm First Sergeant Rich Myers with the Indiana State Police Public Information Office, and I have as my guest Cindy Booth with CASA, the court-appointed special advocates here in Indiana. And this sounds like a unique group of people doing a very, very difficult job. So how do you determine, do you have people that come in and think, well, I'm going to do this and then maybe not make it? I mean, it sounds like it's going to take quite the special person to be doing this.
It is a different volunteer opportunity. It does require a certain mindset. And so it's not like, Habitat for Humanity, where you're with a team and you're building something. You're kind of out there as, I'll say in quotes, an investigator. You're gathering information. You're looking at what's happening in the child's life and seeking to report that back to the court. And we do have people who really want to help a child, and then maybe the training is a little too long, or maybe they can't handle what they see. But I'll tell you, we get a great number of people who want to help children they haven't seen, they haven't met. And at Child Advocates, we provide a social worker to be a team member with that volunteer so that when they have questions, when they have concerns, they can talk to that person, sort of support them as they go through their volunteer opportunity. So I think we try to help people be volunteers for us, and we're very appreciative of them.
Do they have to work within their county? You say we have 78 here in Indiana, and I know we have 92 counties. Can they cross lines?
Okay, I'm going to confess something here. Because we have such a crushing need here in Marion County, I'm happy to steal from the donut counties and suffer the consequences from my fellow CASA directors. But there are CASA programs around the state. In fact, if you call the 1-800 number, 1-800-542-0813, they will let you know where the nearest CASA program is. But you do not have to be a resident of the county in which you serve.
So how long are they... If they work this for a while, I'm just can't do this any longer. I've got something to change in my life. Can they come back?
Oh, yes. We've reactivated some volunteers who maybe, had a baby or changed jobs or something happened in their own lives, and they say, I just need to take a step back. Or they're just a little tired of doing it. We certainly welcome back reactivated volunteers. Our volunteers at Child Advocates stay on an average of 3 years, which I think is remarkable. So I think what we're doing is we're screening the right people. We're getting the right people who really want to do this work, and they stay with us. So I'm hopeful that somebody out there is listening to this and thinking, I can do this work. I want to find out more about it and become one of our CASA volunteers.
What about extended training? Or I know you have the initial training. Do you have to go out back every so often and be recertified or anything?
No, we do offer what we call continuing ed.
Okay.
We recognize they're volunteers. They're already giving us a lot of time, and there is an encouraged requirement from our state office to have another 12 hours of training. So we will give different trainings that will refresh what they've had, or
Right.
something new comes along. So when we had the heroin epidemic come
Right.
to Indiana, we felt like we had to tell volunteers about that. We talk about trauma-informed care, just different things that at Child Advocates, we focused on a race equity series called Undoing Racism. So we do bring things that we think will help the volunteers in their work with child advocates.
What about needs with different languages? I'm guessing you're probably getting a lot of the different languages coming in here to Indiana, and I'm sure you probably need volunteers with that.
Yes,
Special
we
need.
do. So we've seen our Latino population increase
Uh-huh.
to probably 3 or 4% recently in the Indianapolis area, maybe more in other areas in Indiana. So certainly Spanish-speaking volunteers are very important to us. We would love to have those children be able to speak in the language they're comfortable with. But we've also had, Burmese children come into the system,
Yes.
and Somalian and Chinese. So, it's sometimes we've just had to pay for interpreters when we get to
Okay.
that because we haven't had volunteers.
But that's how you work into that. Then
Absolutely.
if you have a language barrier or something, you can make that happen.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's very interesting. So how do if they have a person can contact this 800 number throughout the state if they're anywhere in the state, but you especially need people here in Indianapolis, you're saying?
Absolutely, we do. So in 2014, we noticed a blip up of the new chins coming in. It was like double the number of new children coming into the system. And so total in 2014, we represented about 6,000 children just in Marion County. So and then 2015, it was over 7,500 children. So,
Wow.
and I checked the numbers just to date from January 1 to yesterday. We've had 700 new children come into the system in just Marion County. And so we have people at our office who review the filings and say, is this child one who should really have been removed from their parents? And we're just not seeing that. We're seeing these are cases that should be filed. So that's a big need. And when we thought we had enough volunteers at over 500 last year, and now we're saying we probably need to double that. So
Wow.
yes, so we're really in need of CASA volunteers in Marion County.
What's your average, maybe you don't know this, but if a person takes on a case and they work through it and everything comes out good, the parents abide by the rules, do everything they're supposed to and become safe again, what's the average time of getting that back? What's your average time on a case?
Well, we used to say our cases lasted about a year. They're inching up to about 18 months. Now I think that's probably going to be longer the more substance abuse cases we have, particularly heroin and other cases where you're going to see relapses of parents in their treatment. So it's getting longer.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I expected to hear.
Yes.
So let's get this. Do you have an email address that you'd like to get out that we can?
Sure. My
somebody can-
email is cindy@childadvocates.net. Our website is childadvocates.net, so it's very easy to get a hold of us if people want to volunteer.
And a lot of information, I'm sure, is on that website, so people can kind of see what they're getting into. Do you have an
Yes.
availability if people want to talk to you, or some other already investigator that somebody said, maybe I want to volunteer, but I'd like to talk to somebody that's done it and see how? Do you have people that go out with them and can see what they do?
We do have a mentoring program at Child Advocates where our more experienced volunteers will assist those volunteers who've just graduated and are a little nervous about going to that first visit. We also have recently added a volunteer resource specialist. She's one of our supervisors who had an amazing record of keeping her volunteers, encouraging them, and having a high retention rate. So we ask her to be our specialist. You can gather lots of volunteers in, but you want to keep and encourage and
Right.
support the ones you have. And so she does a great job of that.
Great. Well, we're down to our last 45 seconds here. Cindy, anything I missed that you wanted to push out?
Please contact the 1-800 number, 1-800-542-0813, or come to our website in Indianapolis, childadvocates.net. We need you. There's a child hoping that you will come to their door and ask them, what do you want me to tell the judge?
Because you got to be their voice when they can't be, correct?
That's right.
That's great. Well, thank you again for being in here. We appreciate it. And let's not make it 2 years next time.
I promise. That will be great. Thank you very much.
We'll have you back in here again. That number is 1-800-542-0813. 0813 1-800-542-0813. Let's get CASA some help. Again, thank you to the Indiana State Police Alliance, Cops for Kids, for putting us out here each and every week. And Tom Trial Roadshow is out.